Hi everyone, welcome back to Thorough Newspaper Analysis. This is a video for the 15th of May 2024. Now let's quickly proceed and have a look at the pointers of discussion for today. So the first segment for today's discussion would be the editorial segment. And here we have an Indian Express article which revolves around the concept of history sheets. This is going to be indeed a very new and exciting article to discuss because in the recent past 1 year we've not touched upon this topic at all. So this is going to be a good learning experience. Secondly, we talk about the news updates, and this is going to be followed by the last segment of legal news, where we just have one news to cover. So without further ado, let's start with the editorial. The title of that is Supreme Court Cautions on History Sheets, all that you need to know about this particular practice. Now let's quickly have a look at the context of it. So why has the Supreme Court, made certain observations on this practice of history sheeting or preparing these sheets? And what is the Supreme Court said with respect to that? What was the plea before the court? Let's understand. The Supreme Court has asked all the states and the union territories to make sure that the history sheets which are drawn up by their police personnel, they do not reflect the caste prejudices. That is, they do not reflect upon the caste of these criminals, so that these criminals cannot, they are not put in a disadvantageous position owing to the caste factor. The bench was deciding a plea by AAP MLA Amantullah Khan challenging a history sheet which was opened against him and a proposal to declare him a bad character by entering his name in the surveillance register of Delhi's Jamia Nagar police station. So a bench of Justices Surya Kant and K.V. Vishwanathan on 7th of May cautioned against the unfair, the prejudicial, and the atrocious mindsets that reflect and confirm caste biases. Now, before we get into this case and what was the contention of this person before the Supreme Court, let's understand what a history sheet in essence is, how and against whom this is drawn up. See, history sheet, if we have an understanding of it in police parlance, as in the practice of police personnel, how is this concept viewed? So in police parlance and the procedure followed by them, a history sheeter is an individual with a significant criminal history. So let's say there is somebody who has been implicated in multiple offenses. So therefore, we can say that he has criminal history, correct? Now, against this person, history sheet is drawn. The process of opening a history sheet, it is governed by the police rules of the respective states. Now, for example, for the states of Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Delhi, and the UT of Chandigarh, the Punjab police rules of 1934, they are operating, they are governing and regulating the practice of drawing history sheets. The process, it begins when the SHO, by that we mean the head of the police station, the station house officer, also in the CRPC often referred to as the officer in charge of the police station, he takes notice of an individual who has been proven guilty in multiple cases and or he's found to be constantly engaged in criminal activity. So, either he's committing the offenses multiple times, so he has a criminal past record or history, or else he's abating the commission of, certain offenses repeatedly at the instance of somebody else. Subsequently, a report containing the detailed information about these sort of criminals who have, repeat criminal history, about them, a report about them containing their necessary details, their associates and known relatives, it is submitted to the senior superintendent of police or to the SP of the district through assistant commissioner of police. So the police, the SHO draws this history sheet against these sort of persons, and it is then submitted to the higher officials in the police cadre. A person can also be history sheeted based on an ongoing assessment by police of the danger that he may pose to the society. Now, what kind of details are included in the history sheet? See, if we have a look at the Punjab Police Rules of 1934, which governs all these states, a history sheet must contain a description with special attention to peculiarities of appearance. It must mention relations and connections, that is to say the associates of this person, his relatives, his family members, to give a clue regarding those persons with whom the criminal is likely to harbor when wanted by the police. So that, as in when this person is wanted and needed in respect of any case, the police can get a fair picture of who all are his associates who can, harbor this person. Moreover, any property which is owned by the criminal and her mode of earning a livelihood should also be entered. And why this particular, information point is entered in the history sheet? Why are they saying that, whether this person is a businessman or, this is how he's making his livelihood? This is to facilitate a judgment as to whether this criminal is at any time living beyond his means, whether he is capable of furnishing a personal recognition of any value, whether he is an owner of any property, whether he is, living on a tenanted apartment or a wage earner, and so on, so that we can get a fair idea of the background of this person. What are his modes of livelihood? What is his standing, his position in life? There are multiple. Now let's understand as to, what all kinds of crimes and criminals are clubbed together in a single history sheet. So see, there are multiple kinds of history sheets. Let's have a look at the names of those history sheets, and then we understand what does, let's say, a KD history sheet contain. So these are the kind of history sheets. First is a KD sheet. KD sheet essentially is known deprecators. Then we have suspect sheets, rowdy sheets, member of organized crime sheets. Then we have budding criminal sheets. So depending on the assessment of the police, the kind of history sheets, the nature of it, these are grouped under several categories. So let's understand what is a KD sheet or a non-deprecator sheet. So a KD sheet, it is made for criminals who are convicted for offenses such as dacoity, robbery, burglary. But when it comes to rowdy sheets, these are for those who habitually commit or abet the commission of offenses involving breach of peace. Now, if we have a look at suspect sheets, then these are for those criminals who have been convicted once for an offense of burglary or theft. History sheets, they are opened automatically following conviction of dacoity, robbery, burglary, and theft for habitual offenders, and upon release from life imprisonment for certain cases of financial crimes. The exact procedure for opening history sheets and the conditions in which they are opened, it varies depending on the state or the UT's standing orders and the police manuals. Now let's understand, when did the practice of history sheeting or drawing up history sheets against these criminals that we just had a look at, when did it start? When was the beginning point? So the term history sheet, it appeared for the very first time in Punjab Police Rules of 1934. These rules also state that a history sheet can be opened against someone who is reasonably believed to be habitually addicted to crime or to be an aider or abettor of such persons, irrespective of whether they have been convicted or not. So, as from this, we can clearly see that the ambit of it is very large. You need not be somebody who's convicted, let's say, for repetitive commission of offenses. If you're somebody who the police person can reasonably believe to be habitually addicted to crime, if let's say you've been aider or abettor of somebody who is habitually been committing crime, then also history sheet can be drawn up against you, irrespective of whether you've been convicted or not. Now, this is an instance of a paper that was written by a law student from NLSIO Bangalore, and he, in his research paper, gave certain observations. So what did he note? See, he noted that the language which is used in various police rules, police manuals with respect to history sheeting, it disturbingly is similar to police records which were maintained of criminal tribes by police in colonial India. Now, during the colonial time, police used to maintain records. Records of what? Records of criminal tribes. Now, the practice of history sheeting, it has disturbing similarities with those police reports. Now, what police records? Now, what are these records which were maintained for criminal tribes? Let's understand that. See, essentially, the Criminal Tribes Act of 1871, it stated that if the local government had reason to believe that there is any tribe, any gang, or any class of persons which is addicted to systematic commission of non-bailable offences, then the government may report the case and request to get the tribe or the gang declared criminal. Now that we've understood the entire legality of history sheeting, the practice of it, who are the persons against whom it can be drawn, which is the authority which can draw it. Now let's understand the case of this MLA, the plea which is before the Supreme Court, which has necessitated the writing of this article. So according to Khan, the AAP MLA who is before the Supreme Court, he learned from a social media post, which was very recently on 13th of May, that the SHO of Jamia Nagar, the officer in charge of this police station, he had on 28th of March, last year submitted a dossier to the senior police personnel along with proposal to open a history sheet and place his name as a person of bad character in police records to keep a close watch on his activity. So what has happened? He learned from the social media that a dossier is submitted by the SHO to his senior, police officials to whom he is subordinate, along with the proposal that he be considered as a person of bad character and his activities be watched. The proposal was accompanied by a list of 18 cases which were pending against the MLA. The petitioner said that the information was leaked on the day his bail application was listed before a trial court. He said that he had been discharged, acquitted, or the FIR had been quashed in 14 cases which were registered against him, and that the cases mostly related to offences which were of the nature criminally intimidating somebody, threatening, or riots. In January 2023, the Delhi High Court had dismissed Khan's plea against opening of history sheet by Delhi police and the tag of bad character. A single judge bench of Justice Sudhir Kumar Jain had held that the Delhi police had followed due procedure of law and complied with the mandatory requirement of the Punjab Police Rules of 1934 in reasonable manner. So the procedure of law was followed in drawing up this or opening up this history sheet. The Supreme Court rejected Khan's appeal, but directed the police to make sure that the details of his minor children and wife, they are not reflected in his history sheet. The police submitted that the format of history sheeters was in accordance with the Punjab Police Rules of 1934, but it would revisit them to ensure that the dignity, the self-respect, and the privacy of innocent people who happen to be the family members, they are not compromised. Earlier, in March of this year, the Delhi Police Commissioner had issued a standing order saying that details of minor relatives should not be included in the history sheet. See, this is more in the light of the procedure that we follow when it comes to, let's say, although it is the nature of the offense is altogether different, but in rape cases also, in family dispute matter also, often you must have come across the fact that in the judgments, the name is either blackened or it is not displayed, or else alphabetical letters are merely placed, and all of this is done so as to ensure that our law machinery, the processes of the criminal legal system, it is such that it takes care of the fact that the privacy of minors, of innocent family members, it is not compromised. And this is specifically noticed in POCSO Act cases. So with this, now we proceed to the national news segment for today. And this is the first update here. India inks 10-year deal to operate Iran's Chabahar port. India and Iran, they've inked a very significant bilateral contract, which is for a decade-long tenure, which is for 10 years, and it is aimed at enhancing the operations of the Chabahar port. This helps in bolstering trade links with Central Asia and parts of Europe, thereby leveraging the port's strategic location on Iran's southwestern coast. Now, I have a question. A couple of months back, we did a TNA story on another port, which India has now, indulged in construction of, managing of, out of India. So this is the first port, Chabahar port, that India operates out of its own territory. And there's another port. So which is that port? It would be absolutely great if you could just, mention that here. NASA announces plan to build first railway system on moon. NASA has unveiled its ambitious plan to construct the first lunar railway system, which is known as FLOT. Now, FLOT is a short form. It's an acronym for Flexible Levitation on Track. This is designed to revolutionize payload transport to moon. Let's talk about what is the purpose of FLOT in a bit detail. It is a robotic transport system for lunar operations. It facilitates material transportation and equipment movement on the moon, ensuring sustained human presence on the moon and providing essential resources and logistical support on the lunar surface. So next up is this update. Former Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, Sushil Kumar Modi, he has passed away. BJP leader and former Bihar Deputy Chief Minister Sushil Kumar Modi, he has passed away recently. India gives Maldives US $50 million in budgetary support. India, it has extended budgetary support to the island nation of Maldives with a rollover of US $50 million treasury bills. Now, why has this happened? So see, this comes at a very crucial moment. Why? Because the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, it has warned the island nation against the looming debt distress that it is currently in, as it looks to borrow for more from China. So it is a high risk of external and overall debt distress without significant policy change. So therefore, now India has stepped up with this budgetary support. Archaeologists uncover Alexander the Great's bathroom in Greece. Archaeologists claim that they have recently uncovered and discovered Alexander the Great's bathing quarters and combat gymnasium at the Agai Palace in northern part of Greece. Its features include, now what are some of the culture or the objects or the structures that have been discovered as per this update. So it includes features like city walls, a courtyard, temple, sanctuaries, a theater, a palestra, which is a boxing school, and tombs. Next up is an update in the category of important days for today. So the day concerned is World Football Day. Please mark the date here. It is very important. So the United Nations Assembly has unanimously proclaimed May 25th as the World Football Day, marking a significant milestone in the global celebration of the world's most popular sport. This is a very, very important update. Please make a note of it. Please make a note of the date concerned here. It is May 25th, 10 days from today, 25th of May. The resolution adopted during the 80th plenary meeting of the General Assembly in New York, it coincides with the 100th anniversary of the first international football tournament with representation from all regions, which is the 1924 Summer Olympic Games, which was held in Paris, France. Now, this has brought us to the legal news updates category for today, where we just have one update from the Honorable Supreme Court. And this is indeed an important one because it concerns the members of our fraternity. The Supreme Court has recently held that the services which are rendered by an advocate, it would come under the contract of personal service as opposed to a contract of service. Now, let's understand what is a contract of a personal service. See, to put it simply, a contract of personal service, it relates to an arrangement where an individual is hired for rendering his or her services. However, in the case of in case there is a contract of service, then the services are availed from an independent service provider. So therefore, while in the former case, which is a contract of personal service, the individual is an employee. In the latter case, it is always a third party. Now, let's understand some of the observations which were made by the Supreme Court. The court noted that advocates are generally perceived to be their client's agent, and therefore they owe a fiduciary duty to their client. This is a duty of faith, fiduciary duty. Advocates, they are fastened with all the traditional duties that agents owe to their principals. For example, advocates have to respect the client's autonomy to make decisions at a minimum as to the objective of the representation. Advocates, they are not entitled to make concessions or give any undertaking to the court without express instructions from the clients. Here, you may make a note of the fact that, in Indian Evidence Act also, we follow something called the practice or the concept of privileged communication, wherein, let's say, if you have disclosed a certain sort of information, or if, let's say, an advocate is furnished any advice, he's given you any advice, or he is, acquainted with the contents of any document. And when has this happened? This has happened while you've approached the advocate and you've employed him already, or you've disclosed this information for the purpose of testing, whether you want to employ the person concerned or not. So then that communication cannot be disclosed before the court, at, let's say, the evidence stage. There are, however, certain exceptions, but broadly, there is a concept of privileged communication between the advocate and his client. It is the solemn duty of an advocate not to transgress the authority which is conferred upon him by his client. An advocate is bound to seek appropriate instructions from his client or his authorized agent before taking any action or making any statement or concession which may directly or indirectly, that is to say remotely, affect the legal rights of the client. An advocate is bound to seek appropriate instructions from the client or his authorized agent before taking any action or making any statement. This we've already covered. Now, the advocate represents the clients before the court and conducts proceedings on behalf of his client. He is the only link between the court and the client. Therefore, his responsibility is onerous. He is expected to follow the instructions of his client rather than substitute the instructions which are given by the client with his own judgment. He cannot do so. He acts as an agent of his client with strict instructions which are being given by his client, and he is to act within the domain of those instructions itself. So the name of this case is Bar of Indian Lawyers through its president, Jasbir Singh Malik versus D.K. Gandhi, PS National Institute of Communication Diseases. So this has brought us to an end of our Q&A for today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.